The smart lock on our front door was dying again, blinking red like a digital middle finger every time Sabrina tried to unlock it. I watched from the kitchen window as my wife of 12 years jabbed her manicured finger at the keypad, her perfect blonde hair catching the evening light. Even frustrated, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, which, knowing Sabrina, was probably the point. "Ethan," she called through the glass, "fix this damn thing!" I took my time walking to the door, savoring the rare moment when my wife needed something from me. These days, our conversations consisted mainly of her telling me what I was doing wrong and me wondering when exactly I'd become a stranger in my own house. "Maybe if you didn't slam it every time you left," I said, opening the door manually. Sabrina brushed past me without a thank you, her expensive perfume trailing behind her like a toxic cloud. "I need to get ready. I'm volunteering at the blood bank tonight." I nearly choked on my coffee. "You? Volunteering?" "Yes, me. Is that so hard to believe?" She paused at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on her hip in that pose she'd perfected during her brief modeling career. "Some of us care about helping others." The sarcasm was right there on my tongue, but I swallowed it. Our 10-year-old son Alex was in the next room doing homework, and I'd learned not to start fights when he could hear. Instead, I watched Sabrina disappear upstairs, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a countdown timer. This was new. In 12 years of marriage, Sabrina had never volunteered for anything that didn't come with a social media photo opportunity. The closest she'd come to charity work was buying a $50 t-shirt that donated $5 to breast cancer research. My phone buzzed. A text from Logan Pierce, my business partner and, supposedly, my best friend. "Drinks tomorrow? Need to talk." I stared at the message. Logan and I had been friends since college, built our cybersecurity consulting firm from nothing. But lately, something felt off. He'd been distant, canceling our weekly poker games, avoiding eye contact during meetings. And now he wanted to talk. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Alex appeared in the doorway, his dark hair sticking up in the back the way it always did when he'd been concentrating hard. "Sure, buddy." I ruffled his hair, grateful for the distraction. Alex was the one good thing Sabrina and I had created together, the only reason I hadn't walked away from this marriage years ago. We worked through his homework at the kitchen table, his pencil scratching against the paper as he solved fraction problems. Upstairs, I could hear Sabrina moving around, drawers opening and closing, the sound of her getting ready for her mysterious volunteer work. "Why does Mom go out so much now?" Alex asked, without looking up from his worksheet. The question hit me harder than it should have. "What do you mean?" "She's always going somewhere, and Uncle Logan comes over a lot when you're not here." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Uncle Logan comes over?" "Yeah, they talk in the living room, but they get quiet when I come downstairs." Alex erased something aggressively. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The directness of the question stunned me. Kids always knew more than you thought they did. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Tommy's parents got divorced last year, and before it happened, his dad was always asking questions like you just did." Smart kid. Too smart for his own good, maybe. "Mom and I are just figuring some things out. But no matter what happens, you know I love you, right?" He nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. 10 years old and already learning that the adults in his life couldn't be trusted to keep their promises. Sabrina appeared in the doorway, transformed. Gone was the frustrated woman who couldn't work a door lock. This version wore a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that made her look younger, more innocent. It was a calculated look. Sabrina never did anything by accident. "Ready to go?" she asked, checking her phone. Always checking her phone these days. "We're going with you?" I asked. "I thought it would be nice. Family time." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Alex can see what community service looks like." Another red flag. Sabrina had never been interested in teaching Alex about community service. She'd hired a cleaning lady rather than teach him to pick up his toys. But I was curious now. I wanted to see what this was really about. The blood bank was a sterile building on the edge of town, all white walls and fluorescent lighting, the kind of place that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Sabrina walked in like she owned the place, greeting the receptionist by name. "Hi, Mira. I'm here for my appointment." Mira was a thin woman with prematurely gray hair and the kind of pale skin that suggested she spent too much time indoors. She looked at Alex and me with surprise. "You brought your family." "I thought they could wait while I donate. Show my son what giving back looks like." The conversation felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced it. I settled into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs with Alex, watching as Sabrina disappeared into the back room with Mira. "This place gives me the creeps," Alex whispered. I had to agree. There was something off about the whole setup. The building was too quiet, too empty for a blood bank. Where were the other donors? The busy medical staff? My phone buzzed. Another text from Logan. "Actually, can we meet tonight? It's important." I stared at the message, pieces of a puzzle starting to form in my mind. Logan's sudden urgency. Sabrina's mysterious volunteer work. Alex's comment about Logan visiting when I wasn't home. No, I pushed the thought away. Logan was my best friend. Sabrina might be distant, might be going through some kind of midlife crisis, but she wouldn't. Would she? 20 minutes later, Sabrina emerged looking pale but satisfied. She had a small bandage on her arm and that same calculated smile. "All done. Ready to go home?" The drive home was quiet. Sabrina stared out the window, lost in thought. Alex dozed in the back seat, and I drove through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, wondering when everything had started feeling so wrong. We were pulling into our driveway when I saw the car parked across the street. A black sedan with tinted windows, the kind of car that screamed, "official business." As we got out of our car, two people emerged from the sedan, Mira from the blood bank, and a man in a cheap suit who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Mrs. Marks?" the man called out. "We need to speak with you." Sabrina froze, her keys halfway to the front door. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my wife's eyes. Fear. "I'm not home," she said quickly. "Ethan, take Alex inside." But Mira was already walking toward us, holding a manila envelope. "Mr. Marks, you need to see this. Pack your bags and leave the city with your son. Tonight. You don't want to know the reason, but trust me, you're in danger." She pressed the envelope into my hands and walked away without another word, leaving me standing in my own driveway, holding what felt like a bomb. Sabrina had disappeared into the house. I could hear her upstairs, moving fast, opening and closing drawers. Alex stood beside me, confused and scared. "Dad? What's happening?" I looked down at the envelope in my hands. My name was written on it in block letters, along with an official-looking seal I didn't recognize. "Go inside, buddy. Watch TV for a few minutes while I figure this out." Alex hesitated, then nodded and ran into the house. I waited until I heard the television turn on before opening the envelope. The first document was a DNA analysis report. Sabrina's blood, cross-referenced with samples from crime scenes in 3 different states. The second was a federal alert with Sabrina's photo and a list of charges that made my hands shake. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit murder. The third document was the one that made me sit down hard on our front steps. A toxicology report showing traces of antifreeze in the blood sample she'd given tonight, and a note in Mira's handwriting. "Check your food, check your medicine, check everything." I ran into the house, my heart pounding. The kitchen first. I opened the refrigerator, looking for anything that might have been tampered with. The orange juice Alex loved, the coffee creamer I used every morning. Then I remembered my prescription medication. Blood pressure pills I'd been taking for 6 months, ever since my last physical, when the doctor said my numbers were too high. I found the bottle in the bathroom medicine cabinet and shook out a few pills. They looked normal, but when I held them up to the light, I could see tiny holes where someone had injected something with a needle. My wife was poisoning me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the bathroom sink, staring at my reflection in the mirror. How long had this been going on? How close had I come to... "Alex!" I called out, panic rising in my throat. "What did you have for dinner?" "Just a sandwich," he called back, "and some juice." The juice. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the orange juice container, sniffing it. It smelled normal, but that didn't mean anything. I poured it down the sink, my hands shaking. Upstairs, Sabrina was still moving around. I could hear her on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. I crept up the stairs, staying close to the wall to avoid the creaky spots I'd memorized over the years. "No, he doesn't know yet," she was saying. "But Mira spooked him. We need to move faster." A pause. "I don't care what Logan thinks. The kid is a liability. They both are." Another pause, longer this time. "Fine, tomorrow night. But after that, I'm done with this place." I backed down the stairs carefully, my mind racing. Tomorrow night. Whatever Sabrina was planning, I had less than 24 hours to figure out how to protect Alex and myself. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? That my wife might be trying to poison me based on a warning from a stranger at a blood bank? That she was having whispered phone conversations about moving faster and dealing with liabilities? No, I needed proof. Real proof. And I knew exactly how to get it. I waited until Sabrina fell asleep before making my move. She'd come to bed acting normal, even affectionate, kissing my cheek and murmuring something about being tired from her volunteer work. The performance was flawless, but now I could see it for what it was, an act designed to keep me calm while she planned my murder. My home office was in the basement, a windowless room I'd turned into a high-tech fortress over the years. Multiple monitors, encrypted hard drives, and enough surveillance equipment to make the NSA jealous. Cybersecurity wasn't just my job, it was my obsession. I powered up my systems and got to work. Sabrina thought she was careful with her digital footprint, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd married someone who understood technology better than she understood deception. Her laptop was the easy target. We shared the same Wi-Fi network, and I'd installed monitoring software years ago after Alex had gotten into some inappropriate websites. What had started as parental controls became a window into my wife's secret life. The first thing I found was the affair. Months of text messages between Sabrina and Logan, my business partner, my supposed best friend. The messages started innocent enough. Complaints about work, jokes about mutual acquaintances. But they quickly escalated into something that made my stomach turn. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I will be at the Henderson meeting until 6. The way you looked at me during dinner last night, I wanted to drag you upstairs right there. Soon we won't have to sneak around anymore. Just be patient. I scrolled through hundreds of messages, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. They'd been meeting at the Riverside Motel, a seedy place on the highway that rented rooms by the hour. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. But the affair was just the beginning. Hidden in an encrypted folder on Sabrina's laptop, I found documents that made the adultery look like a parking ticket. Bank statements showing large cash deposits from unknown sources. Fake identification documents with Sabrina's photo, but different names. And most damning of all, a detailed file on something called the protocol. The protocol was a step-by-step guide for murdering a spouse and making it look natural. Start with small doses of antifreeze mixed into food or medicine. Gradually increase the dosage over several months. The victim would appear to be suffering from kidney failure, a tragic but common medical condition. By the time anyone suspected poisoning, it would be too late to save them. The file included a timeline. I'd been marked for death 6 months ago, right around the time I'd started taking blood pressure medication. Sabrina had been slowly killing me, and I'd been thanking her for taking such good care of my health. But there was more. Sabrina wasn't just planning to kill me, she was planning to kill Alex too. A separate document outlined how a grieving widow might tragically lose her only child in an accident shortly after losing her husband to illness. The insurance payout would be substantial, enough for Sabrina and Logan to disappear and start a new life somewhere without extradition treaties. I sat back in my chair, staring at the evidence on my screen. My wife and my best friend were planning to murder me and my son for money. The smart thing to do would be to call the police immediately, take this evidence to the FBI, get Sabrina and Logan arrested, protect Alex. But I wasn't feeling particularly smart. I was feeling angry. These two people had betrayed me in the worst possible way. They'd looked me in the eye, shared meals with me, pretended to care about me while planning my death. They thought I was weak, stupid, easy to manipulate. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I spent the next 4 hours setting up digital traps throughout our house. Every device connected to our network, the smart TV, the security cameras, even the refrigerator, became part of a surveillance system that would record everything Sabrina did. I installed keyloggers on her laptop and phone, giving me access to every message she sent, every website she visited, every call she made. But more importantly, I started planting evidence of my own. I created fake email accounts and sent anonymous messages to Logan, warning him that Sabrina was dangerous, that she'd killed before and would kill again. I altered bank records to make it look like Sabrina had been stealing money from our joint accounts. I even created fake social media profiles posting about suspicious activity at the Riverside Motel. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a real player looked like. By morning, I had enough evidence to destroy both their lives and a plan to make sure they knew exactly who was responsible. Sabrina came downstairs at 7:30, looking refreshed and beautiful. She made coffee and asked about my day, playing the role of devoted wife with Academy Award-worthy skill. "You look tired," she said, touching my forehead with fake concern. Are you feeling okay? Just couldn't sleep, I replied, accepting the coffee she offered. I'd already tested it with a chemical strip. Clean for now. Bad dreams? She nodded sympathetically and went about her morning routine, checking her phone, applying makeup, getting dressed for another day of pretending to be human. I waited until she left for her yoga class before putting the next phase of my plan into motion. The Riverside Motel was exactly as seedy as I'd imagined. Peeling paint, broken neon sign, and a parking lot that looked like a crime scene waiting to happen. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:15, Logan's BMW pulled into the lot. 5 minutes later, Sabrina's Mercedes followed. They met at the door to room 237, embracing like lovers in a romance novel. It would have been touching if they weren't planning to murder me. I waited until they were inside before making my move. The motel office was run by an elderly man who looked like he'd stopped caring about anything years ago. I showed him my private investigator license, a fake one I'd created that morning, and explained that I was gathering evidence for a divorce case. Room 237, I said, sliding a $100 bill across the counter. I need to know how long they've been meeting here. The old man pocketed the money without hesitation. Every Tuesday and Friday for about 6 months. Always pay cash, always leave separately. Real discreet-like. Any other details? The woman, she's got a temper. Heard her screaming at the guy a few weeks back. Something about sticking to the plan, not getting sloppy. He shrugged. Figured it was just relationship drama. I thanked him and returned to my car, setting up a long-range camera to document their affair. I didn't need the photos for evidence. I already had enough digital proof to bury them both. But I wanted them to know they'd been watched, studied, exposed. They emerged from the room an hour later, Logan looking satisfied, and Sabrina looking calculating. Even from a distance, I could see her checking her phone, probably reading the anonymous messages I'd been sending him all morning. That evening, I was waiting in the living room when Sabrina came home. She looked agitated, distracted. The anonymous warnings were working. How was yoga? I asked innocently. Fine, she snapped, then caught herself and softened her tone. Sorry, I'm just stressed about work. Anything I can help with? She looked at me for a long moment, and I wondered if she was considering telling me the truth. Then she smiled that perfect, empty smile. No, it's nothing. Just client drama. We had dinner together, the three of us sitting around the table like a normal family. Alex chattered about his day at school while Sabrina and I made polite conversation, both of us pretending we didn't know what the other was really thinking. After Alex went to bed, Sabrina tried to seduce me. It was a calculated move, designed to keep me off balance and unsuspicious. She wore the black negligee I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she claimed was too uncomfortable to wear. She poured wine and put on soft music, creating the kind of romantic atmosphere we hadn't shared in years. I've been thinking about us, she said, running her fingers through my hair, about how we've grown apart lately. Have we? You know we have. She kissed my neck, her lips soft against my skin. But it's not too late to fix things. I let her continue, playing the role of devoted husband while my hidden cameras recorded everything. She was good at this. The seduction, the manipulation, the lies wrapped in silk and perfume. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have believed her. But then she made a mistake. I love you, Logan, she whispered against my ear. The words hung in the air between us like a confession. Sabrina froze, realizing what she'd said. But it was too late. The mask had slipped, and I'd seen the truth underneath. What did you just call me? I asked quietly. Nothing. I didn't say anything. But her face had gone pale, and her hands were shaking. You called me Logan. No, You called me by your lover's name while trying to seduce me in our bedroom. I stood up, gently removing her hands from my chest. How long, Sabrina? How long have you been screwing my best friend? She could have denied it. Could have tried to gaslight me, make me think I'd misheard. Instead, she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. You finally figured it out, she said, her voice completely different now, colder. I was wondering when you'd catch up. Logan said you were too stupid to ever notice, but I gave you more credit than that. So it's true. Oh, it's all true. The affair, the lies, everything you're probably imagining right now. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. The only question is, what are you going to do about it? I could have told her about the evidence I'd gathered, the digital traps I'd set, the anonymous messages that were driving Logan paranoid. Instead, I played dumb. "I don't know," I said. "I guess I need time to think." She turned back to me, and for a moment I saw something almost like pity in her eyes. "Time," she repeated. "That's the one thing you don't have, Ethan." Before I could ask what she meant, she was walking toward the door. "Where are you going?" "To Logan's. We have things to discuss." She left me standing in our bedroom, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage and the growing certainty that tomorrow night, whatever they had planned for tomorrow night, was going to be my last chance to save Alex and myself. I waited until I heard her car leave the driveway before returning to my office. The cameras had recorded everything, including her confession, but more importantly, the GPS tracker I'd planted in her car would tell me exactly where she was going and how long she stayed there. It was time to pay Logan a visit. Logan's house was a monument to everything I'd once thought I wanted. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, and enough high-tech gadgets to make my setup look like a child's toy box. He'd bought it after our company's first big contract, claiming he needed space to entertain clients. Now, I realized it was just the perfect place to plan murders. I didn't bother knocking. Logan had given me a key years ago, back when we were actually friends, when I thought I knew the man I was in business with. I let myself in through the side door, moving quietly through the darkened kitchen toward the sound of voices in the living room. "Told you not to get sloppy," Sabrina was saying. "Those messages you've been getting aren't random. Someone knows." "It's probably just spam," Logan replied, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Some internet troll trying to mess with people. "Internet trolls don't know about antifreeze, Logan. They don't know about the protocol." I crept closer, staying in the shadows. Through the doorway, I could see them sitting on Logan's expensive leather couch, Sabrina pacing while Logan nursed a glass of whiskey. "Maybe we should call it off," Logan said. "Find another way." Sabrina stopped pacing and stared at him. "Another way? We've been planning this for 8 months. I've been slowly poisoning my husband for 6 months. There is no other way." "But if someone suspects, then we move faster." Sabrina's voice was ice cold. "Tomorrow night, like we planned. The boy first, then Ethan. Make it look like a murder self-life ending. Grieving father kills his son, then himself." Logan set down his whiskey with shaking hands. "Jesus, Sabrina. When you first suggested this, you said it would be clean. Natural causes. Plans change. The important thing is that they both end up dead, and we end up rich." I'd heard enough. I stepped into the living room, clapping slowly. "Bravo," I said. "Really, that was beautiful. The caring wife, the loyal friend, the perfect murder plot. You two should write a book." They both spun toward me, Logan jumping to his feet and knocking over his drink. Sabrina just smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Hello, Ethan. Took you long enough." "Sorry to keep you waiting. I was busy documenting your confession." I held up my phone, showing them the recording app that had been running since I'd entered the house. "Every word, crystal clear audio. Should make for interesting listening at your trial." Logan's face went white. "Ethan, I can explain." "Explain what? How you've been sleeping with my wife while helping her plan my murder? How you've been sitting across from me at business meetings, knowing you were going to kill me? Please, Logan. I'd love to hear that explanation." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Logan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The affair, yes, but the other thing, that was all her idea." Sabrina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Don't be pathetic, Logan. You were the one who suggested antifreeze. You were the one who said we needed to kill the boy too." "You're lying! Am I?" Sabrina turned to me, her smile growing wider. "Tell him, Ethan. Tell him what you found in his computer." I stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You haven't checked Logan's files yet? Oh, this is rich." She walked over to Logan's desktop computer and powered it on. "Show him the folder labeled Insurance, Logan. Show him who really came up with the protocol." Logan made a move toward the computer, but I was faster. I pushed him back onto the couch and took control of the keyboard. It took me less than 30 seconds to find what Sabrina was talking about. The folder contained dozens of files, all related to murdering me and Alex. But these files were older than the ones I'd found on Sabrina's computer. Much older. Some of them dated back almost 2 years. "Logan created the protocol," Sabrina explained, enjoying every word. "He researched the methods, planned the timeline, even picked out the insurance policies we'd need to make it worthwhile. I was just the delivery system." I scrolled through the files, my anger building with each document. Logan hadn't just betrayed me. He'd been planning to kill me since before the affair even started. The whole thing had been his idea. "You son of a witch," I said, turning to face him. 2 years. You've been planning this for 2 years. Logan's face crumpled. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as a fantasy, just thinking about what life would be like without you around. Then Sabrina found the files and she said we could actually do it. So you decided to murder me and my son for money. It wasn't about money. Logan stood up, his fear replaced by anger. It was about her. I've been in love with Sabrina since college, since before you even met her. You got everything I wanted. The girl, the family, the perfect life, and you didn't even appreciate it. So you decided to take it. I decided to claim what should have been mine in the first place. The confession hung in the air between us. This wasn't just about money or even the affair. This was about jealousy, resentment, and 20 years of hidden hatred. Well, I said finally, this has been educational, but I think it's time to call the police. I pulled out my phone, but before I could dial, Sabrina spoke up. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Why not? Because while you've been playing detective, we've been playing chess. She walked over to the window and looked out at the street. Logan, tell him about the insurance policies. Logan wiped his face with his hands. We took out policies on you and Alex 6 months ago. If you die of natural causes, Sabrina gets $2 million. But if you're murdered, she gets nothing. So we needed to make sure your death looked natural. But now that you know about the plan, Sabrina turned back to me. Well, now we have to get creative. What are you talking about? The police will never believe your story, Logan said, gaining confidence. A grieving husband, driven mad by his wife's affair, breaks into his best friend's house and makes wild accusations about murder plots. When they find your body tomorrow morning, it'll look like a self-life ending. The guilt of discovering the affair, the shame of your violent breakdown tonight. I realized what they were saying. You're going to kill me here, tonight. We're going to defend ourselves, Sabrina corrected. You broke into Logan's house, threatened us, attacked us. We had no choice but to fight back. Logan was already moving toward a drawer in his desk. I didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a crystal award from our company's first big success, and threw it at Logan's head. The crystal caught him in the temple, and he went down hard, blood streaming from the wound. Sabrina screamed and lunged at me, her manicured nails aiming for my eyes. I caught her wrists and pushed her away, but she came at me again, this time grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter. She swung wildly, the blade missing my throat by inches. You should have just died quietly, she hissed, slashing at me again. Now Alex gets to watch his father bleed out. The mention of my son's name sent a surge of rage through me. I grabbed Sabrina's wrist and twisted until she dropped the knife, then pushed her hard against the wall. You stay away from my son, I said, my face inches from hers. You even think about hurting him, and You'll what? She smiled, even with my hands around her throat. Kill me? Go ahead, Ethan. Show me what kind of man you really are. For a moment, I was tempted. It would be so easy to squeeze just a little harder to end this threat to Alex once and for all. But that would make me like them, and I wasn't ready to cross that line. Instead, I let her go and stepped back. No, I said. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to destroy you. Logan was stirring on the floor, blood matting his hair. Sabrina was rubbing her throat, her perfect makeup smeared and her hair disheveled. They both looked smaller somehow, less dangerous. You can't prove anything, Sabrina said. It's your word against ours. I held up my phone again. Actually, it's your recorded confession against your recorded confession, plus all the digital evidence I've been gathering for the past 24 hours. Bank records, text messages, surveillance footage from the motel, GPS tracking data showing exactly where you've been and when. Their faces went pale. But here's the thing, I continued. I'm not going to the police. Not yet. What? You two want to play games? Let's play games. You have until tomorrow night to convince me not to destroy your lives. Impress me. Show me why I should show mercy. I walked toward the door, stepping over Logan's groaning form. Oh, and Logan, you might want to check your company email tomorrow. I sent some interesting files to our biggest clients. Something about embezzlement and fraud. Should make for interesting conversations. I left them there, bleeding and broken, and drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood. Tomorrow night, they'd said. Whatever they had planned for tomorrow night was supposed to be the end of me and Alex. Instead, it was going to be the beginning of their nightmare. I spent the rest of the night turning our house into a fortress. The smart home system I'd installed over the years wasn't just for convenience. It was a comprehensive security network that could monitor every entrance, every window, every movement within a 50-foot radius of our property. I activated cameras I'd forgotten I'd installed, set up motion sensors in the backyard, and programmed the system to alert me if anyone so much as breathed near our house. But technology was only part of the solution. I also prepared for a physical confrontation. The basement had a hidden room behind my office, originally designed as a tornado shelter but now serving as a safe room. I stocked it with food, water, and communication equipment. If things went bad, Alex could hide there while I dealt with Sabrina and Logan. I also prepared some surprises for my would-be murderers. The front porch had loose boards that I'd been meaning to fix for months. Instead of repairing them, I loosened them further and rigged them with pressure sensors. Anyone stepping on them would fall through, probably breaking an ankle in the process. The back door had a new security system, a high-voltage shock that would deliver a painful but non-lethal jolt to anyone trying to force entry. The basement stairs were rigged with a tripwire that would send an intruder tumbling into the concrete wall at the bottom. I wasn't planning to kill anyone, but I wanted them to know they'd been in a fight. Alex woke up early, probably sensing the tension in the house. I made him breakfast and tried to act normal, but he was too smart to be fooled. "Dad, are you and Mom really getting divorced?" I set down my coffee and looked at my son. 10 years old, with my dark hair and Sabrina's green eyes, trying to understand why his world was falling apart. "Probably," I said, "but that doesn't change anything between you and me. Will I have to choose who to live with?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. If Sabrina wasn't planning to murder us both, if this was just a normal divorce, the answer would be complicated. Custody battles, lawyers, years of fighting over visitation schedules. But this wasn't a normal divorce. "You'll live with me," I said. Your mom is going through some problems right now. She needs help that I can't give her." Alex nodded solemnly. "Is that why Uncle Logan doesn't come over anymore when you're home?" "What do you mean?" "He used to visit when you were at work, but now he only comes over when you're gone. And Mom gets weird when I mention him, out of the mouths of babes." My 10-year-old son had figured out the affair before I had. "Uncle Logan and I aren't friends anymore," I said, "and he's not allowed in this house. If you see him here when I'm not around, you call me immediately, okay?" "Okay." Alex finished his cereal and grabbed his backpack. "Dad, are we in danger?" The directness of the question stunned me. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you're acting like we are. The way you keep checking your phone, looking out the windows, asking me questions about Mom and Uncle Logan. It's like you're scared of something." I knelt down so we were eye level. "I'm not scared, buddy. I'm just being careful. Sometimes adults have to deal with complicated problems, and being careful is the smart thing to do. Like when you check under my bed for monsters, even though we both know they're not real. Something like that." I drove Alex to school myself, taking a route that let me check for anyone following us. The streets were clear, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Mrs. Henderson, Alex's teacher, met me at the classroom door. "Mr. Marks, could I speak with you for a moment?" We stepped into the hallway and she lowered her voice. "I wanted to let you know that someone called the school yesterday asking questions about Alex. They claimed to be from your insurance company, wanting to verify enrollment information." My blood ran cold. "What kind of questions?" "His schedule, what time he gets picked up, whether he walks home or takes the bus. I didn't give them any information, of course, but I thought you should know." "Did they give a name?" "A woman named Sarah Mitchell. She said she was calling on behalf of Prudential Life Insurance." I didn't recognize the name, but I was willing to bet it was either Sabrina or one of her associates. They were gathering information, planning their attack. "If anyone else calls asking about Alex, don't tell them anything," I said. "And if anyone shows up here claiming to be family or friends, call me immediately." Mrs. Henderson nodded, her face serious. "Is Alex in some kind of danger?" "I hope not, but I'd rather be paranoid than sorry." I left the school and drove to the police station, trying to decide how much to tell them. The problem was that most of my evidence was obtained through illegal means: hacking Sabrina's computer, planting tracking devices, breaking into Logan's house. A good lawyer could get it all thrown out of court, but maybe I could plant some seeds, get them thinking about Sabrina and Logan as suspects if something happened to Alex and me. Detective Ray O'Malley was a tired-looking man in his 50s who seemed more interested in his coffee than my story. I gave him the sanitized version. I suspected my wife was having an affair with my business partner, and I was concerned about some threatening messages I'd received. What kind of threatening messages? O'Malley asked, not looking up from his paperwork. Anonymous texts saying I should watch my back, that accidents happen to people who don't mind their own business. You bring your phone? I showed him the fake messages I'd created that morning. They were vague enough to be believable, but specific enough to establish a pattern. Could be kids, O'Malley said. Could be spam. Could be your wife's boyfriend trying to scare you off. That's what I'm worried about. You want to file a restraining order? Not yet, but I wanted to get this on record in case something happens. O'Malley finally looked up from his paperwork. Something like what? I don't know, but if my wife and her boyfriend are planning something, I want there to be a paper trail showing I was concerned about it. He studied me for a long moment, then made some notes in his file. We'll keep an eye out, he said, but unless they do something overtly threatening, there's not much we can do. I left the police station feeling frustrated but not surprised. The cops wouldn't be any help until after Sabrina and Logan made their move. By then, it might be too late. I spent the afternoon at the office trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while monitoring my security systems remotely. Logan didn't show up for work, which wasn't surprising given the condition I'd left him in. But his absence gave me access to his computer and files. What I found there confirmed my worst fears. Logan had been embezzling money from our company for over a year, siphoning funds into offshore accounts. He'd also been selling our client information to competitors, undermining our business while planning to murder me. The man I'd trusted with my livelihood had been systematically destroying everything we'd built together. But I also found something useful, a detailed plan for tonight's attack. They were planning to break into our house at 11 p.m. when they assumed Alex and I would be asleep. Logan would disable the security system using access codes he'd stolen from my computer months ago. Sabrina would handle the actual murders, making it look like a home invasion gone wrong. The plan was detailed, professional, and completely wrong about my capabilities. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing my counterattack. At 3:30, I picked up Alex from school and took him to my sister's house across town. I told her I was dealing with some work issues and needed Alex to stay there for a few days. She didn't ask too many questions, which I appreciated. Be good for Aunt Sarah, I told Alex as I dropped him off. I'll call you tomorrow. You're not coming back tonight? I have some things to take care of first. Adult stuff. He hugged me tighter than usual. Be careful, Dad. I will, buddy. I promise. I drove home as the sun was setting, my house looking peaceful and innocent in the fading light. The neighbors were having barbecues, kids were playing in yards, dogs were barking at squirrels. Normal suburban life, completely unaware that a war was about to start. I parked in the garage and activated my security systems. Every camera was recording, every sensor was armed, every trap was set. If Sabrina and Logan wanted to play home invasion, I'd give them a game they'd never forget. At 10:45, I turned off all the lights and took my position in the basement, watching the monitors that showed every angle of my property. At 11:03, they came. Logan approached from the backyard, moving carefully through the shadows. He was wearing dark clothes and carrying what looked like a crowbar. The bandage on his head from last night was visible even in the infrared camera. Sabrina came from the front, dressed like a jogger in case anyone saw her. She had a large bag slung over her shoulder, probably containing the tools she planned to use to stage our murders. They thought they were being clever, coordinating their attack from two directions. What they didn't know was that I'd been watching them plan this for hours through the tracking devices I'd planted in their cars. Logan reached the back door first and produced a small electronic device, probably a signal jammer designed to disable my security system. He attached it to the doorframe and waited for the green light that would tell him the system was down. He waited a long time. The jammer was designed to work on standard security systems, not the military-grade encryption I used. While Logan stood there like an idiot, waiting for technology to save him, I activated the high-voltage shock system. The scream he let out was probably heard 3 blocks away. Logan went down hard, his body convulsing as 50,000 volts coursed through him. The shock was designed to incapacitate, not kill, but it left him twitching on my back porch like a landed fish. Sabrina heard the scream and came running around the house. She saw Logan on the ground and immediately understood that their plan had gone wrong. "Ethan!" she called out. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." I activated the external speakers I'd installed for exactly this situation. "We are talking. My voice echoed across the yard. "You're trespassing on my property with the intent to commit murder. I'm defending my home and family." "It doesn't have to be like this." "You're right. You could have just asked for a divorce. Could have just taken half of everything and walked away. Instead, you decided to poison me and murder my son." Sabrina looked around frantically, probably trying to figure out where the cameras were hidden. "I never wanted to hurt Alex." "Liar. I heard you planning it. I recorded you planning it." She was quiet for a moment, probably trying to think of a new strategy. "What do you want, Ethan? Money? I'll give you whatever you want. What I want is for you to suffer the way you made me suffer. What I want is for everyone to know what kind of monster you really are." I activated the sprinkler system, soaking Sabrina and Logan with ice-cold water. It was petty, but it felt good. "This is crazy!" Sabrina screamed. "You can't keep us here!" "Actually, I can. This is my property, and you're trespassing. I've already called the police. They should be here any minute." That was a lie, but it had the desired effect. Sabrina started backing toward the street, dragging the semi-conscious Logan with her. "This isn't over," she yelled. "Yes, it is," I replied through the speakers. "Check your email when you get home. Both of you." They stumbled away into the night, soaked and defeated. I watched them through my cameras until they disappeared, then sat back in my chair and smiled. Phase 1 was complete. Now for the real fun. I gave them 30 minutes to get home and check their email before I made my next move. The messages I'd sent were simple but devastating. To Logan, screenshots of his embezzlement, sent to every client we'd ever worked with, along with a detailed explanation of how he'd been stealing from both the company and them. His reputation in the cybersecurity industry was finished. To Sabrina, copies of all her affair texts sent to her mother, her sister, her book club, and every social media contact she had. But more importantly, I'd sent the evidence of her murder plot to the FBI field office in Portland, along with a detailed timeline of her attempts to poison me. By morning, they'd both be ruined, but I wasn't done yet. I left the house at midnight, driving through the empty streets to Logan's place. His car was in the driveway, and I could see lights on in his living room, probably trying to figure out how to salvage his life from the wreckage I'd created. I didn't go to the front door this time. Instead, I went to work on his precious BMW. Sugar in the gas tank was a myth. It wouldn't actually damage the engine, but a handful of ball bearings in the oil pan would create a very expensive grinding sound. Cutting the brake lines was too dangerous, but loosening them just enough to cause a slow leak would leave him stranded somewhere inconvenient. I also left him a present on his windshield, a printed copy of every email he'd sent about murdering me and Alex, along with a note in my handwriting. "The FBI has copies of everything. Enjoy prison." Then I drove to Sabrina's new apartment. She'd moved out of our house 3 days ago, claiming she needed space to think. Now I knew she'd been preparing for our murders, establishing an alibi by living separately. The apartment was in a seedy complex on the wrong side of town, not the kind of place my wife would normally be caught dead in. Appropriate, given the circumstances. I picked the lock on her door, a skill I'd learned during a cybersecurity conference about physical penetration testing, and let myself in. The place was a mess, clothes everywhere, empty wine bottles on the counter, the desperate chaos of someone whose life was falling apart. I planted listening devices in her bedroom and living room, then hacked into her laptop and installed monitoring software that would give me access to everything she did online. If she was planning a counterattack, I wanted to know about it in advance. But more importantly, I found something I hadn't expected. Hidden in her closet behind a pile of designer shoes was a metal box containing documents that changed everything I thought I knew about my wife. Sabrina's real name was Sandra Mills. She was wanted in connection with the deaths of 2 previous husbands, both of whom had died under suspicious circumstances. The first had supposedly committed self-elimination after losing his job. The second had died in a car accident after their marriage started having problems. But there was more. The documents showed that Logan wasn't just her lover. He was her partner in a long-running con game. They'd been working together for over 5 years, targeting wealthy men, marrying them, and then killing them for insurance money. I was supposed to be victim number 3. The whole thing, our meeting, our courtship, our marriage, had been a setup from the beginning. I sat on her bed, surrounded by evidence of my wife's true nature, and tried to process what I was learning. The woman I'd loved, the mother of my child, didn't exist. She was a character Sabrina had created to manipulate me. But then I found the document that made everything else pale in comparison. Alex wasn't my son. The DNA test was hidden at the bottom of the box, dated from shortly after Alex's birth. Logan was his biological father. They'd been planning this con for over 10 years, waiting for the right moment to cash in. My son, the only good thing to come out of my marriage, the only reason I'd stayed with Sabrina as long as I had, wasn't even mine. I should have been devastated, should have felt betrayed, angry, destroyed. Instead, I felt something else entirely: relief. If Alex wasn't my biological son, then I didn't have to worry about custody battles or visitation rights. When Sabrina and Logan went to prison, I could adopt Alex legally, give him a real home with someone who actually loved him. The kid had been as much a victim of their con as I had. I photographed all the documents and uploaded them to my secure server, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Sabrina would never know I'd been there. By the time I got home, it was almost 3 in the morning. I was exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. Too much adrenaline, too many revelations, too many plans forming in my head. I checked my security system and saw that Sabrina had returned to the house while I was gone. She'd tried to get in through the basement window, probably hoping to plant evidence that would support their home invasion story. But the window was alarmed, and she'd triggered every camera on the property. The footage showed her circling the house like a predator, testing every entrance, looking for weaknesses. At one point, she'd stood directly in front of my hidden camera and smiled as if she knew I was watching. "You can't hide forever, Ethan," she'd said to the camera. "We know where Alex goes to school. We know where your sister lives. We know where you work." It was a direct threat against my family, recorded in high definition. I forwarded the footage to Detective O'Malley with a note. "This is what I was worried about. Please advise." Then I called my sister. "Sarah, it's Ethan. I need you to take Alex and go stay with Mom and Dad for a few days." "What's wrong?" "Sabrina's having some kind of breakdown. She made some threats, and I don't want Alex anywhere near here until I get it sorted out." Sarah didn't ask for details, which I appreciated. She promised to pick Alex up from school and drive straight to our parents' house in New Hampshire. With Alex safe, I could focus on ending this. I spent the rest of the night preparing for what I knew would be their final attack. They were desperate now, their careful plans in ruins, their reputations destroyed. Desperate people made mistakes, and I was counting on them to make a big one. At 7 a.m., my phone rang. Logan's number. "You son of a witch," he said without preamble. "You've destroyed everything." "No, Logan. You destroyed everything when you decided to murder me and my son. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. That kid isn't even yours." "I know. I found the DNA test last night when I broke into Sabrina's apartment." Silence on the other end of the line. You broke in? The same way you were planning to break into my house. The difference is, I didn't come there to commit murder." "We never would have hurt Alex." "Liar. I have recordings of you planning to kill him." More silence. "What do you want, Ethan? What's it going to take to end this?" "I want you and Sabrina to confess. I want you to tell the police everything. The affair, the embezzlement, the murder plot, all of it. Do that, and I'll make sure Alex gets placed with a good family instead of going into foster care. And if we don't, then I release everything to the media. The affair, the con game, the previous husbands she murdered. You'll both be famous, but not in a good way." Logan was quiet for a long time. "She'll never confess," he said finally. "Sabrina doesn't give up. She'd rather burn everything down than admit defeat." "Then that's what we'll do. We'll burn it all down." I hung up and waited. They came for me that afternoon. Not at my house this time. They'd learned that lesson. They came to my office, walking in like they owned the place. Sabrina in a designer dress and Logan in an expensive suit, playing the roles of concerned wife and loyal business partner one last time. "Ethan," Sabrina said, her voice full of fake concern, "we need to talk." My assistant Janet looked confused. "I thought Mrs. Marks was—" "It's fine, Janet. Send them in." They followed me into my private office, and I closed the door behind them. "Nice performance," I said. "Very convincing. Almost makes me believe you actually care about resolving this peacefully." "We do," Logan said. "This has gone too far. People are getting hurt. People have been getting hurt for 10 years. I'm just evening the score." Sabrina walked over to my desk and picked up a framed photo of Alex. "He's a beautiful boy," she said. "It would be terrible if something happened to him." Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You think you're so smart with your cameras and your computers and your digital evidence, but we know where he is. We know exactly where he is. My blood went cold. If you touch him, we won't have to, Logan interrupted, because you're going to do exactly what we tell you to do. Which is, Sabrina set down the photo and smiled. You're going to transfer every penny in your accounts to us. You're going to sign over your half of the business, and you're going to disappear. And if I don't, then Alex disappears first, permanently. I stared at them, these two people I'd once trusted, and realized that negotiation was pointless. They were never going to stop, never going to give up, never going to let Alex and me live in peace, which meant I had to stop them myself. Okay, I said. You win. They looked surprised. Just like that? Logan asked. Just like that. I'll transfer the money, sign the papers, whatever you want. But I have one condition. You're not in a position to make conditions, Sabrina said. I want to see Alex first. I want to say goodbye. They looked at each other, probably trying to decide if this was a trap. Fine, Sabrina said finally. But we all go together, and if you try anything, I won't. You've made your point. I'm beaten. It was the performance of my life, and they bought it completely. We left the office together, walking out to the parking garage like old friends. I suggested we take my car, claiming I wanted to drive one last time before losing everything. They agreed, probably figuring that controlling the transportation gave them an advantage. They were wrong. My car was equipped with more surveillance equipment than a police cruiser. Every word they said, every threat they made was being recorded and transmitted to my secure server. But more importantly, I'd programmed the GPS to take us exactly where I wanted to go. Not to my sister's house, where Alex was safe, to the police station. Where are we going? Logan asked as I turned onto Main Street. I told you, to see Alex. This isn't the way to your sister's house. No, it's not. I pulled into the police station parking lot and turned off the engine. What the hell are you doing? Sabrina demanded. Ending this! Detective O'Malley was waiting for us at the entrance, along with two uniformed officers. I'd called ahead, sent him all the evidence I'd gathered, including the recordings from our conversation in my office. Sabrina Mills and Logan Pierce, O'Malley said as we got out of the car. You're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, embezzlement, and about a dozen other charges. They tried to run, of course. Logan made it about 10 feet before one of the officers tackled him. Sabrina got a little further, but her designer heels weren't made for sprinting across asphalt. As they were being handcuffed, Sabrina turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. This isn't over, she snarled. I'll get out, and when I do... No, you won't, I said calmly. The FBI has evidence linking you to the murders of your previous husbands. You're looking at life in prison, probably without parole. The fight went out of her then. She sagged against the police car, finally understanding that her long con had come to an end. Logan was crying, begging me to help him, promising to testify against Sabrina if I'd just give him another chance. Too late for that, I told him. You should have thought about consequences before you decided to murder a 10-year-old boy. They were loaded into separate cars and driven away, leaving me standing in the police station parking lot, finally free. The trial lasted 3 months. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every detail of Sabrina and Logan's plan to murder Alex and me. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, digital forensics, financial records showing the embezzlement and insurance fraud. The defense tried to paint me as a paranoid husband who'd manufactured evidence to frame his cheating wife. But the DNA evidence from Sabrina's previous victims made that argument impossible to sustain. Logan broke first, agreeing to testify against Sabrina in exchange for a reduced sentence. He got 25 years for conspiracy and embezzlement. With good behavior, he might get out when he's 70. Sabrina got life without parole for 3 counts of murder in the first degree. She never showed remorse, never admitted guilt, never stopped insisting that she was the real victim. Even as they led her away in shackles, she was threatening to appeal, to expose my illegal surveillance, to somehow turn the tables one more time. But it was over. Finally, completely over. The hardest part was explaining everything to Alex. I'd adopted him legally as soon as Sabrina's parental rights were terminated. He was my son in every way that mattered, and I wasn't going to let biology change that. But he deserved to know the truth about his parentage, about what his mother had been planning to do to both of us. We had that conversation on his 11th birthday, sitting on the dock behind our new house on the lake. I'd sold the old place, too many bad memories, and bought something smaller, quieter, where we could start over. "So Logan is my biological father," Alex said after I'd finished explaining everything. "Yes, but that doesn't change anything between us. And Mom was going to kill us both for money. That was her plan." Alex was quiet for a long time, throwing stones into the water and watching the ripples spread. "I'm glad you figured it out," he said finally. "Me too, buddy." "Dad, are you going to get married again?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know. Maybe someday. Would that bother you?" "Only if she tries to poison us." I laughed, surprised that he could joke about it. Kids were more resilient than adults gave them credit for. "I'll make sure to run a background check first. And a DNA test. Definitely a DNA test." We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the lake. Two survivors, building a new life from the wreckage of the old one. The insurance companies fought the payouts for months, claiming that Sabrina's crimes voided the policies. But my lawyer was better than theirs, and eventually they settled. Between the life insurance, the sale of the house, and Logan's half of the business, Alex and I were financially secure for the rest of our lives. I used some of the money to start a new company, specializing in digital forensics for divorce cases. It turned out there was a huge market for exposing cheating spouses and their financial crimes. Who knew? But the real satisfaction came from the smaller victories. Logan's reputation in the tech industry was destroyed. No one would hire him, no one would work with him, no one would even return his calls. The man who'd thought he could steal my life ended up losing his own. Sabrina's family disowned her completely. Her mother, who'd never liked me, sent a formal apology and a check to cover Alex's therapy. Her sister changed her name and moved to another state to escape the scandal. The Riverside Motel, where they'd conducted their affair, was shut down by the health department after I anonymously reported several code violations I'd discovered during my surveillance. The owner lost his license and his business. It was petty, but it felt good. The best revenge, though, was simply living well. Alex thrived in his new school, made friends, joined the soccer team. He still had nightmares sometimes, still asked questions about why his mother had wanted to hurt us, but he was healing. I started dating again, carefully, with full background checks and a healthy dose of paranoia. But I was open to the possibility of love, real love, with someone who wasn't planning to murder me for money. On the second anniversary of Sabrina's conviction, I got a letter from her in prison. She was still trying to manipulate me, still claiming that she'd loved me, that everything had been Logan's idea, that she'd never really wanted to hurt Alex. I read it once, then fed it into my paper shredder. Some people never learned, but I had learned. I'd learned that trust was precious and fragile. I'd learned that the people closest to you could be the most dangerous. I'd learned that sometimes the only way to protect your family was to fight back with everything you had. Most importantly, I'd learned that revenge wasn't about hurting people. It was about making sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. Alex and I were having dinner when the news broke that Sabrina had been killed in prison. Another inmate, apparently, someone who didn't appreciate child killers. The guards claimed they hadn't seen anything, hadn't heard anything, hadn't been able to prevent it. "Is it wrong that I'm not sad?" Alex asked. I thought about it for a moment. "No, buddy, it's not wrong. She made her choices, and choices have consequences." "Do you think Logan knows?" "Probably. Prison news travels fast." "Good. I hope he's scared." I looked at my son, tall for his age now, smart, strong, unbroken despite everything he'd been through. "You know what the best part is?" I said. "What?" "We survived. We're here, we're together, and we're happy. That's the best revenge of all." Alex smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. We finished dinner and cleaned up together, then settled in to watch a movie. Just a father and son, enjoying a quiet evening at home, safe in the knowledge that the people who'd tried to destroy us were gone forever. Outside, the lake was calm, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. Inside, the house was warm and peaceful, filled with the sound of Alex's laughter at something funny on the screen. I'd lost a wife and a best friend, but I'd gained something more valuable. The certainty that the family I'd built with Alex was real, honest, and unbreakable. Sometimes the blood you spill isn't your own. Sometimes it's just the stains you finally wash away. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to start over with a clean slate and the people who matter most. As I tucked Alex into bed that night, he looked up at me with those green eyes that had once reminded me of Sabrina, but now just looked like his own. "Dad, I love you." I love you too, buddy. Sweet dreams. I turned off his light and walked downstairs to my office, where I kept all the evidence from the case in a locked filing cabinet. Photos, documents, recordings, digital files, everything that had brought Sabrina and Logan to justice. I opened the cabinet and looked at it all one last time, then closed it and locked it away. The past was the past. The future was what mattered now. I walked out onto the deck and looked up at the stars, breathing in the clean lake air and listening to the gentle sound of water lapping against the shore. Somewhere out there, Logan was lying in a prison cell, probably wondering if he'd be next, wondering if Sabrina's death was an accident or if someone had decided that justice needed a helping hand. I hoped he spent the rest of his life wondering. But mostly, I hoped he spent the rest of his life remembering what he'd lost when he'd decided to betray the people who trusted him. The sirens had faded. The rain had washed the blood away. I held the memory of my son's smile close, and for the first time in years, no one was coming for us. We were free. We,